Who was the original person that proposed the waterboarding idea and said this works? And how did that person even find out how it works? Was it accidental?
The actual person is still unclear. So, listen, I've read all of these guys' memoirs, and I was there amongst them, and I didn't know. So, as it turned out, about a month after 9/11, somebody went up to George Tenet at a cocktail party and said, there are these two psychologists who worked for the Air Force, and they've reverse engineered the SEER training, the survival evasion.
It's a very intense training.
Very intense. And a lot of guys don't make it
I was
through.
supposed to go to SEER training. I never ended up going. I got out of the Army.
It's hideous.
It's hideous.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they've reverse engineered it.
break small bones. You know, you go through some the POW type of training. They gas you to make sure you're not going to leak information. It's very intense.
Yeah. And for $108 million, they can contract with us and implement it, and we're going to call it enhanced interrogation techniques. And whoever it was somebody either in the CIA's Counterterrorism Center or somebody with proximity to the leadership of the Counterterrorism Center. And so contracts were signed. Now, I was in Pakistan at the time as the chief of CIA counterterrorism operations. I had no idea, none of us did, that these conversations were taking place at headquarters. And so starting in January of 2002, we began hitting safe houses, Al-Qaeda safe houses. And I still remember the first one I did. My first day in Pakistan, I went to introduce myself to the station chief, and he said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to come up with a standard operating procedure for taking down an Al-Qaeda safe house. I said, okay. I went back to my office with a legal pad, and I wrote, all right. I said to myself, what do I need to do to take down a safe house? And I had taken all the classes, advanced counter-terrorist operations, all that stuff. I wrote at the top of the paper, 0200, because I thought I would want it to be dark. I would want everybody to be asleep, and I want the element of surprise.
2 a.m.
Yeah, 2 a.m. I need battering rams, I need weapons and ammunition, I need encrypted walkie-talkies, secure comms back to headquarters, we need all this stuff. I just went online, galls.com, to this police, supply house in Kentucky. I bought all this crap, put it on my CIA credit card, they shipped it out in the diplomatic pouch. And so the first night that we tried this, we got a tip. We went to the house, broke down the door. We catch 2 kids, 18 years old. They both burst into tears. One of them asks if he can call his mom. I'm like, no, you can't call your mom. So we cuff him, turn him over to the Pakistanis. They put him in the Rawalpindi jail. Rawalpindi being the enormous city that's connected to Islamabad. We did it again a week later, and we got a tip from a friendly Arab intelligence service. And broke down the door. And this time we got some important people. We got a guy from Egyptian Islamic Jihad. And you may recall they were the ones that killed President Sadat. And then in, I think it was 95, they merged with Al-Qaeda. And I thought, okay, this is going pretty well. So we started doing this more and more and more. We're catching so many people that one day the Pakistanis come to me and say, look, the jail's full. Like it's literally full. We can't squeeze one more person into it. You got to do something with these guys. I sent a cable to headquarters, and I said, the jail's full, the Pacs want them out, what do I do? They call me, and they said, we want you to put them on a C-12 cargo plane and send them to Guantanamo. And I said, Guantanamo, Cuba? Why would we send them to Cuba? And they said, well, we came up with this idea. We're going to keep them in Cuba for 2 or 3 weeks until we can decide which federal court to try them in. So it was, the Eastern and Southern Districts of New York, the Eastern District of Massachusetts, the Western District of Pennsylvania, and the Eastern District of Virginia. I said, that's a great idea. So we start sending everybody to Guantanamo. But then Dick Cheney says, or somebody close to Dick Cheney, another one of those things that's never been really revealed, they don't have any rights in Cuba. Why don't we just keep them there forever? Okay, so that's what started happening. in the meantime, we capture Abu Zubaydah in late March of 2002. Now, we were told at the time Abu Zubaydah was the number 3 in Al-Qaeda. That turned out to be incorrect. He had actually never even been a member of Al-Qaeda. He was a bad guy. He was a facilitator for Al-Qaeda. He founded what they called the House of Martyrs, the Al-Qaeda safe house in Peshawar. He had created and staffed Al-Qaeda's 2 training camps in Kandahar and Helmand provinces in Afghanistan. So if you wanted to make jihad, he would get you in to Afghanistan. If you were tired of the fight and you wanted to go home, he would get you out, get you a passport, send you back to your home country. So bad guy. And then we captured him. I had no idea that at headquarters at the time, there was this debate about what to do when we eventually capture a leader. Now, we had already killed Mohammed Atef, who had been what they called the director of military affairs for Al-Qaeda. We killed him in Tora Bora in October of 2001. So what do we do with this guy, Abu Zubaydah? I had no idea that these enhanced interrogation techniques had been in the works from that cocktail party in October until March of 2002. In May of 2002, I get back home to headquarters. And I'm just standing in the sandwich line at the cafeteria. And a senior officer comes up to me very casually. And he says, "Hey, I'm glad I ran into you. I meant to ask you, do you want to be certified in the use of enhanced interrogation techniques?" I had never heard that term before.
Certified in enhanced interrogation techniques.
I said, "Well, what does that mean?" And he says, "We're going to start getting rough with these guys." Like that. I said, "Well, what does that mean?"
He's saying this in the cafeteria.
In full view of everybody in there. Now, everybody's cleared, but they're not cleared for that information. It was so highly compartmentalized. So he described these techniques to me. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Buddy, that sounds like a torture program." And he said, "It's not a torture program. The president signed it and the Justice Department approved it." And I said, "Let me think about it for an hour." So I got out of the sandwich line. I went up to the 7th floor of the CIA, which is the executive floor. There was a very, very senior CIA officer up there for whom I had worked in the Middle East 10 years earlier. And we loved each other. So I knocked on his door and I said, "I need some advice. I was just approached about these enhanced interrogation techniques." And he said, "First of all, let's call a spade here. This is a torture program. And you know how these guys are." He said, "They're cowboys, and somebody's going to kill a prisoner. And when that happens, there's going to be a congressional investigation. Then there's going to be a Justice Department investigation, and somebody's going to go to prison. Do you want to go to prison?" I said, "No, I don't want to go to prison." And as it turned out, I was the only person who went to prison. But I said, "No, I don't want to go to prison." I went back downstairs. I said, "This is a torture program. I want no part of it."
So you never learned. You never went through it.
I was the only one. They approached 14 people. And I'm sorry to tell you that I was the only one who said no. And the crazy thing is, I knew these guys. I was friends with these guys. Our wives were friends. Our kids played together. I had no idea that they had the ability to become monsters, murderers, you know?
But the 2 psychologists who originally came up with that, where did they take that from? And how did they come up with the testing?
Yes.
Because you either are taught how to do this or it accidentally happens to you.
That's right. So they were actually instructors in the Air Force's SEER training program. And they said, "Hey, this turns these guys into babbling, weeping little girls. We should be doing this on prisoners."
How did they learn, though?
They were taught.
By who?
The Air Force. They had both been Air Force.
How did the Air Force learn?
Oh, it's a long-standing program. Because the idea is, let's say you're an Air Force pilot and you get shot down over Iran. They want to teach you what presumably the Iranians would do to you and then how you can try to withstand it.
And these were what? James Mitchell and Bruce Jessen?
Bruce Jessen, that's correct.
So those are the guys that came up with the waterboarding program.
That's it.
And then
And they got rich.
And so how did he get rich, by the way? How do you make money if you come up with that?
They charged the CIA, the reports are between $47 million and $108 million for their services.
What?
Yeah.
To teach people how to do waterboarding, they taught them.
And then to make matters worse, these 2 guys go out to the secret prison and they actually carry out the torture. At the CIA, we were never trained in this kind of thing. We were never trained in interrogation. When I started interrogating prisoners, I cabled headquarters. I said, look, we have these prisoners. I have to interrogate them, or somebody has to interrogate them. What should I do? Should I turn them over to the FBI? They said, no, interrogate them. I said, yeah, but I've never had an interrogation class. Oh, just wing it. You can figure it out.
Wow. Yeah. Even right now, it says the 2014 Senate Intelligence Committee report on CIA reported torture identified that they got paid over $80 million for their work. That is pretty. So did you ever see anybody waterboard anybody?
Well, we waterboarded each other in training, but in terms of prisoners being waterboarded, no.
Okay.
But I should add, after I turned it down, as crazy as this sounds, I got passed over for promotion. And I went into the deputy director of the Counterterrorism Center's office. He was an old friend of mine. And I said, damn it, what do I have to do to get promoted around here? I just caught the number 3 of Al-Qaeda with these 2 hands, and I get passed over for promotion? What do I have to catch bin Laden to get promoted around here? And that senior officer that I had spoken to, that I'd gotten the advice from, he promoted me out of cycle. He said, this is a travesty. But a friend of mine who was in my promotion panel said that the chief of counterterrorism said that I had, his words, displayed a shocking lack of commitment to counterterrorism. Shocking lack of commitment. Man, this thing was so patently illegal. I thought, I can't be the only person that sees the illegality in this program. But then what happened was, when I got promoted, I also became the executive assistant to the CIA's deputy director for operations. And in that position, I got to see everything that the CIA was doing around the world. And then the cables started coming back from the secret site saying, we're waterboarding him, and this is what's happening. So
and you're seeing this communication
every single day.
But let me ask you this. Isn't there don't they expect you to get in, and then there comes a moment where they talk to you, where it's the wink-wink conversation, nothing email, nothing text, nothing on WhatsApp signal, where it's like, what do you think we do here, bro? Like, you think we follow the law?
But that was okay for me, for the most part. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I sat next to this guy who was a friend of mine, and we would have lunch together. We traveled together a couple of times. And then there was another guy who sat 20 feet away in one of the very few private offices. And this third guy would come in every day. Hey, guys. We'd say, hey, man, how you doing? Hey, guys, how was your weekend? Hey, it was great. How are you? How was your weekend? Hey, how are the kids? Good. Merry Christmas, whatever. Finally, I said to my buddy, he is the nicest guy. And I don't have any idea what he does here. And my friend says, dude, he's the head of the Special Activities Division. And I said, okay. That was cool to me, because there are very bad people out there who present a clear and imminent danger to the United States and to American citizens and American facilities. And sometimes you have to do some ugly things. But the torture program was a crime of choice. We didn't have to do that. In fact, we were so deeply at odds with the FBI over this that the FBI actually removed all FBI personnel from the country where the secret prison was located. They didn't even want to be in the same country while the torture was going on. Hi, everybody. I'm John Kiriakou, former CIA officer. Please find me on Minect. We have a lot to talk about. CIA, FBI, DOD, torture, secret prisons, international renditions. Maybe you or your child want to apply for a job at the CIA and are looking for some tips. Let me know. There's a lot we can talk about. You pick the subject, we'll make it happen. Again, it's on Minect. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.